Welcome to Interview Connections. We're the first ever podcast booking agency. I'm Jessica Rhodes, the founder. And 12 years ago in 2013, I started booking my dad as a guest on podcasts because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And fast forward to today, we're a multi-seven-figure agency. We've worked with over 800 clients. We've booked more than 30,000 podcast interviews. And this podcast is all of our top lessons from the last 12 years, booking entrepreneurs on podcasts, scaling our company to be multi-seven figures a year, distilled down into bite-sized topics and episodes to help you learn from us. I co-host this show with Interview Connections co-owner and CEO, Margie. And without further ado, let's dive into today's episode.
In today's episode, we are talking all about podcast guesting specifically for coaches. So if you are a coach who is looking to get more coaching clients by being a guest on podcasts, this episode is for you. So let's talk about being a coach, right? You can ask ChatGPT for basically any information that you can need. But I don't think that AI is going to replace coaches. I still want a coach personally. I love to have a coach. We always have a coach. We've taken a couple breaks, but we almost always have a coach or mentor because it is so nice to talk to a human being who has done what you want to do or who is where you want to be and has this experience and unique perspective and way of looking at things and can be there for you to help you. You know, you can't read the ketchup label from inside the bottle. Like, even if you're a great coach yourself, it's great to have a coach who can see things from outside of your perspective and can kind of be that mirror and reflect things back to you. We love coaching. We love having coaches. We love representing coaches with Interview Connections. And this podcast guesting, if you are a coach, is, I truly think, one of the most powerful ways to attract aligned clients.
Yeah, because, you know, as a coach, your clients, just like Margie said, they need to trust you and they need to feel certain that you're going to be able to guide them to where they want to go. And, you know, one example I want to share is our longtime client, Dr. Jolie Hamilton. She's been with us for 5 years and she has a PhD in jealousy. She is a coach for couples who want to become consensually non-monogamous. They want to open up their marriage or their relationship. And if you Google how to be non-monogamous, how to open up my relationship, there will no doubt be lots of articles. I'm sure you could ask ChatGPT, how can I do this? But
Sure.
As you know, Dr. Jolie's podcast is literally called Playing with Fire because this is the type of thing that is playing with fire. It can very easily, having an open relationship after being monogamous can very easily go off the rails. You know, people will get triggered. And so she's a perfect coach for people who want to do that because she's already, you know, had an open marriage for so long. She is an expert in jealousy. So she's going to be able to be there for her clients, guiding them, like being that bumper on the bowling lane. She can foresee what's coming up. That's not an article or a checklist or a list of steps that you could get on the internet. So she's on podcasts sharing her story because when people hear her story, they then know that she's the coach that's going to be perfect for the journey that they want to go on. And she's grown her business from, you know, when she started with us, she was coming out of like a therapy practice model and then grew from really 0 to 7 figures. She was having $80,000+ months just shortly into her second year of being a podcast guest, being out there, sharing her story and really just being herself, right? So getting out there on podcasts is the way that you can attract ideal clients because they want to work with a coach who they feel comfortable with and they feel aligned with. And, you know, we have hired coaches that we have heard speak on podcasts. It's been their story, the way they approach things in their business, the clients they've helped, how they've helped their clients, the successes that they've helped. I mean, one of my first big coaching investments after working with my dad, I did not hear him on a podcast first, actually, but
That was a personal relationship.
Yeah, it was a personal recommendation. But then after my dad, the next coach that I invested in was Allie Brown. And Allie was somebody, I mean, she's a big name in the coaching space. She's very well known for getting women to 7 figures and beyond. And so when I was kind of listening to business podcasts, wanting to be inspired, I was listening to her podcast and I was listening to her interview her clients. I listened to over 50 of her episodes, and then I invested in a VIP day, 15K. Sure, I probably had a consultation call with her, but it was literally her podcast that closed me. Because by the time I filled out the application, I knew I was going to invest. And it was listening to her podcast interviews, hearing her clients. I could see myself, oh, if she got her clients to where they are, then if I work with her, then I'll get there. Like, that's how it worked for me. But it wasn't following her on social media. It was listening to her podcast.
Yeah. And 15K for a single day was a huge investment for the size that this business was at that time. And so it's really like these high ticket clients who are paying you something that is a stretch for them. And not only that, but they're so excited to do it. They're so excited to work with you because they've gotten to know you, hearing you on podcasts. It reminds me so much of the Tony Jones song, which if you don't listen to Tony Jones on Spotify, she's great. And she just keeps repeating, I get paid to be me. I love that song. And I think that epitomizes coaching. And I don't mean that in the sense, I'm not really in favor of coaches who are like, just pay me a bunch of money to be in my vibe. That's not it for me. I think coaches need to be delivering value. That's not just like you can hang around with me, but you really are getting paid to be you. You are a valuable person to be around because of the way that you think and the experiences that you have, the way that you look at things. And that comes across in a podcast interview. And we all know that feeling, or at least I'll speak for myself, the feeling of having the right coach for you in that season. And it really is different depending on what season that you're in. We've worked with different coaches because we needed different things and we were in different places in the business. But that feeling of paying money to a coach, of hearing someone and realizing they're going to be our next coach, it is such a great feeling. It's like this feeling of, I feel like I can do anything because this person has my back. Like, I'm not afraid to like go out there and try something and take some risks, because if it doesn't work, I trust this person so much who I'm going to come back to and say, okay, here's what happened. And they're going to help me talk it through. It makes you feel so unstoppable, really. I think coaches are so valuable. And listening to someone on a podcast, you get that feeling. Like, you can tell from hearing them speak if it is your person, if it is your next coach for this time of life.
Yeah. Selling coaching is it's a type of sale that is so intuitive and emotional for most of your clients. Like, we sell a marketing service. It tends to be very logical for people. Like, this makes sense. But as a coach, you're offering you're offering yourself, right? Like, I get paid to be me. Like, people are paying you to be coached by you. And so they have to really trust you. And there usually is just this intuition of like, I just feel most comfortable with you. And so Christina L. Woods is somebody that I want to share with you because she's somebody that I've personally invested in, and she's gotten so many clients from being on podcasts. And when she first started with us 3+ years ago at this point, she's been with Interview Connections for 3+ years. She had just recently started her coaching business and her hypnotherapy business. And she had come from a corporate career. She was like in like corporate sales work, like totally different industry, and then became certified in hypnotherapy, started coaching. And so she was very nervous. She shares about this when she joins our masterclass. She was very nervous, like going on podcasts hosted by doctors. She felt all this imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to be out there? Like, almost feeling like, do I have the credibility yet? Like, do I have the expertise? But she just showed up and she was authentically herself. She shared her story. She shared value. She answered questions. She, just was herself. And podcast hosts were saying, can I book a session with you? And when it came time for me to find a hypnotherapist for myself and for my daughter, I just was like, Christina, like, yeah, like, I just trust her. I felt most comfortable with her. And that's because she's out on podcasts sharing herself so generously. And so when you're hiring a coach, you are going to be sharing yourself. You're going to be investing. You're going to be opening yourself up. You're going to be vulnerable. You're going to tell your coach things you probably don't tell a lot of your friends. So as a coach, you need to lead by example and open yourself up. And when you do that on podcasts, you create this space for people to come in and want to work with you.
Yes. And we talked about this in the last episode, but there is such a difference between consuming someone's content on social media and listening to them on a podcast interview. Social media is so quick. People aren't paying attention. When I'm on social media, I am dissociated. Like, I am not paying attention. I am like mindlessly scrolling. Maybe I'll read like the captions of something, but probably not the whole thing. Like, I'm not on social media looking to really like go deep with anyone or really understand, like, is this someone who's going to help me? That's just not why I'm there. I'm not paying attention in that way. When I listen to someone on a podcast, I really get to know them. I really trust them in such a different way. And my listening is different. I'm listening in a different way. And that leads to hiring people for really high stakes things, right? Like we talked about it before, my financial planner, I listened to her podcast, and it's a huge amount of trust to hand over like your money, your kids' college, all that stuff. And I really, really trust her. And I grew that trust from listening to her speak on her podcast and as a guest on other people's podcasts. And so as a coach, you're developing that level of trust that you need. And also there's so much nuance to coaching. There's so many coaches and people are like, is it too saturated? I don't think it is, because you're a coach for a specific type of person who's in a specific type of season. You don't have to be the best coach in the entire world. You just have to be an incredible coach for that type of person. And there's so much nuance to you, to who you are, to how you approach things. And it's nuance that can't be captured in a lot of mediums, but I think it really is captured in podcast guesting. And I think that's what makes it so powerful for your ideal clients and leads and future clients to be hearing you and to be listening to you in such a deep way. 30 to 45 minute podcast interview, even if they're 1.5xing the speed, is a really deep dive with them. Like, I think it's more vulnerable. I think it's more connected than most of the other ways that people are consuming media and being exposed to new people. I also think, if you believe in human design, 70 to 80% of the people in the world are responders. So their most brilliant words and thinking come out in response to something. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. Jess and I are definitely both like this. And so being on a podcast, I really feel like it's some of my best speaking, some of my best information. I say stuff and I'm like, oh, that was really good. And it's because the host questions are drawing out responses that if I just sat down and, in front of my phone to film a reel or something, that wouldn't have come out like that. And so hearing you respond to the host, they're getting the best of you. They're getting the nuance of what makes you you. And they're also, your coach is someone who's responding to you. When you're hiring a coach, I'm looking for someone who's going to not just say, do this, do this, do this. I want someone who's going to deeply listen to what's going on for me in my life and business, what I want in my life and business, and is going to respond to that. And so hearing you on a podcast interview, responding to the host, there's something so powerful about it, I think, for people who are going to be your future coaching clients, who are hearing you for the first time responding and saying, oh, wow, this person could really respond to me and what I need. And it builds that trust.
Yeah. Another note that I want to add too is your voice. People will just resonate with your voice, and some people won't, right? Like, there's some people like Margie and I talk where we're like, their voice is just so calming. Like, I just want to listen to them speak. And then there's other people where they're like, they're so wonderful. I just don't really like their voice. We have a client who will send his podcast. He's in the marketing space. He'll send his podcast to potential clients, and he's kind of like, I'm not going to say his name, but he's like kind of like a nerdy guy. And he's like, I just want them to hear my voice because if they don't like it, they're not going to want to work with me. So I want to make sure that they can hear me on a podcast. Like, so you want to make sure people can just hear your voice so they know if it's a fit. All right. And this is an opportunity to really demonstrate your coaching when you're talking to podcast hosts. One of our clients, his name is Isaac Ho. He's a sales expert, and his wife, Natasha, also work with us, and she's a coach. And we did a whole podcast episode about this. I think it's called Asking the Right Questions if you want to search for that in our archives. But they were in the green room chat. Isaac was in the green room chat with a podcast host. And the green room chat is the time that you're talking to the host before the interview starts recording. And Isaac asked the host, why did you start your podcast? Which is just a great way to get to know the host. And within the answer to that question, Isaac was able to see a challenge that the host was trying to solve by podcasting. And one of the challenges was about sales and increasing sales. And so then Isaac said, like, I think I could help you with that if you'd like to have a separate call, like zero pressure, not a sales call, but I could probably help you with that a little bit. And then the person ended up becoming his client. So these podcast hosts are all people that may want to actually be your coaching client. And by going on their podcast, you have this really nice low pressure way to offer them some free coaching. And that has to be done delicately, but it does work.
Yeah. And we're talking about like trust. And when I hear the right coach for me, it is like, I can feel it in my body. It's like a sacral yes. I'm not shopping around. I'm not going to then compare you to other coaches and be like, well, they're a little cheaper. Like, you just know, like you hear the person and you're like, this is the person. And when you hear them, you feel that excitement of getting to that next level. I'm not just hearing like, I'm going to get to talk to this person all the time, which is great. But I'm like seeing myself at the next level of income, at the next level of my business, of my life. Like that is, I think, the picture that you paint when you show up and just are yourself, and the right people hear you and see what becomes possible for them in their life through working with you.
Not to mention that podcast guesting as a way to get your voice out there and to share about your expertise and your story, it's so much easier than writing a book. Books are great. A lot of people, they are an excellent way to claim your authority and build your thought leadership. If you feel called to do that, if you're like, I've got a book in me and I got to birth it, I don't know why birth metaphors are so big with books, because it is a labor of love. But if you have that desire, go for it. But don't invest in write a book and have someone write it for you just because you think it's going to help grow your business. It truly has to be something that you desire to do. And being a guest on podcasts is just so much easier.
Yes. And it's so much easier for me as a potential client to listen to an interview you did than to read your entire book or listen to your entire book, which I probably won't do. Most of the people you send it to probably won't read it. And I don't say that to be mean. I just say that because people are so specific with how that's a lot of time to read an entire book. So also easier than writing a book, also much easier than figuring out social media algorithms. Like if you're someone who just loves social media, that's awesome. Do you? If you're someone who doesn't love social media, but you feel like I have to be really consistent on social media, I have to grow my following in order to get coaching clients, I personally find podcast guesting much easier than that, because while I kind of enjoy social media, I don't like to feel pressure that I have to do certain things on social media, whereas showing up on a podcast and chit-chatting for 30 to 45 minutes is very fun and very easy. So for the right people, it's a much easier way to grow your audience and get in front of ideal coaching clients. And it also creates a lot of great content. It's very easy to take podcast interviews and turn them into social media content that someone else can do all the repurposing and you don't have to do any additional work.
Yeah. All right, so let's go through just a few last steps of what do you need to have in place as a coach to fully leverage podcast guesting to grow your business and to get more coaching clients. So number one, clarity on your ideal buyer. You do need to know and have clarity on who you are the perfect coach for. Like, who is your perfect coaching client? Who is that? Number two, a valuable offer. Now, this could be a custom package. I was just coaching a client recently who, she can create something custom. You don't have to have set packages and containers, but, you have to have a way. Like, if you don't have set packages and containers, you also need to be confident enough that once you're on a call with a potential client, you can create something for them. So you need to have an offer. You need to have a way to convert them from the audience of the podcast that you're a guest on. Like, in our last episode, we talk about your home base on the web. What's your home base on the web? Are you going to send them to a website, a landing page, social media? I prefer it be a home base that you own because social media can go away like that. But you need to have a way to convert them. Some examples of ways that you can convert them, you can send them to book a call with you. You can send them to an application. Like if you have a lot of people reaching out, you can put up an application so you're not speaking to every single person. Work with what you already have. Keep it simple. Look at your current clients. How did they find you? What steps did they take to work with you? Find one of those steps, make that your call to action. And again, have some type of storefront, a home base on the web, website, nice social media landing page, somewhere that people can go to work with you. Because, we're in a mastermind group. We know a lot of coaches that are running 7-figure businesses with no website. You can have a great business without a website, but if you're going to go in front of new audiences, colder markets, podcasts, people that don't know you yet, to convert those listeners, you do need to have some place where they can go to convert and get to know you.
Yeah. And it is possible if you want to do like the simplest minimum viable product, you could send people to a consult call from your podcast interviews and then sign them up and just email them a Stripe link and have no sales page and no nothing. You can do that. Where having some type of presence online is helpful with podcast guesting is for the host too. So it's very possible that you can sign up clients without that, but the host, in terms of accepting you to be a guest on the show, they're going to want to get some type of idea of who you are. It doesn't have to be this incredibly polished social media that's perfect, that has a certain number of followers, just something, a website, something where they can see who you are, what you're about, that you're legit. Don't spend a ton of time and money like freaking out about this. Simple, but you are a coach, you're delivering great value. I love podcast guesting because I feel like there's so much less crap between you and the person that you're serving and giving value to, right? It's just you giving value to another person that enhances their life or business or both, and they are giving you money for it because it's worth it to them and it's valuable. And it's just so simple. And we want to remove all the unnecessary barriers and complex funnels and just keep it simple. Really, this is the next step past referrals is podcast guesting audiences. Super warm, super chill. Don't overthink it.
Yeah. And if you are ready to get booked on podcasts and you're like, hell yeah, ladies, get me on podcasts, go to interviewconnections.com. The next step would be to book a consultation call where we can talk a little bit more about your business, learn about your offer, what types of shows would be the right fit for you. And then if our podcast tour service is a right fit, we'll get you booked.